Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to ancient Persia, a landscape of sun-baked earth, shimmering heat, and endless, dusty horizons. You walk along narrow paths carved by thousands of sandals and hoofprints, feeling the crunch of gravel underfoot. The air tastes dry, but the aroma of spiced goods, cinnamon, saffron, frankincense, clings faintly to the trade caravans passing by. In the distance, a lone rider kicks up a trail of dust, galloping hard, his saddlebag bouncing against his side. He's no ordinary traveler. He's a royal messenger, part of one of the world's first sophisticated postal systems. You, on the other hand, probably wouldn't survive this journey. Between the heatstroke, bandits, and utter lack of iced coffee stops, modern comforts are nowhere to be found. But the couriers? They thrive here, racing between cities, palaces, and military outposts, delivering wax-sealed messages at record speed for their time. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment below. Where are you listening from tonight and what time is it there? It's always fun to see the little global map light up with all of you drifting off together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin by imagining yourself walking alongside a long, winding road. No, not the royal road yet, but the primitive trails traders once took. Picture small groups of merchants, their camels laden with goods, moving cautiously through rocky mountain passes and arid plains. The early Persian landscape was no gentle stroll. Jagged cliffs loomed, and the sand could cut at your skin like tiny shards of glass. Historians still argue whether early Persian messengers worked directly for merchants or if they functioned purely under royal command. But one thing is clear. Even before formal systems, messages had to move. You pause at a small stream, watching traders water their animals and swap news. Without a reliable delivery method, information spread slowly, passed hand to hand, tavern to tavern. Sometimes, messengers were simply the fastest runners. Athletes darting across dangerous terrain with nothing but a scrap of cloth tied to their belts. Picture one of them now. Bare-chested, sandals tied tight, sweat streaming down his back as he races to warn a neighboring village of an approaching threat. Quirky fact: some regions experimented with using homing pigeons, but they weren't always predictable and certainly couldn't carry complex orders. The sun beats down as you continue walking, the landscape around you transforming. On one side, there are low mud brick homes. On the other, farmland stretching as far as the eye can see. You overhear merchants discussing which routes are safest, which villages offer shelter, which guards can be bribed. As you listen, it becomes clear. The Persian Empire needed something faster, stronger, and more reliable than these informal networks. The scale of the empire demanded more. Imagine trying to govern lands that stretched from modern-day Iran all the way to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to Anatolia. With no organized system, orders could take weeks or months to arrive, if they arrived at all. It's said that Cyrus the Great, the empire's founder, recognized this problem early on, envisioning a network that would let him command his vast territories with precision and speed. Of course, historians still debate whether Cyrus himself designed the system or if later kings refined his initial ideas, but the roots undeniably trace back to this ambitious, magnetic ruler. As you trudge along, the sun begins to dip, casting golden light across the hills. You hear the low murmurs of a caravan preparing to set up camp. Tents unfolding, fires being kindled, guards taking positions. There's a steady hum of voices exchanging stories, laughter, a few quiet songs. Amid this bustle, the role of information feels especially precious. Every delay could mean the difference between a successful trade and a ruined deal, between a loyal province and a brewing rebellion. You wander through the encampment, imagining what it would be like to be one of the couriers. Their entire life reduced to saddle sores, breathless urgency, and relentless deadlines. There's an odd comfort in knowing that across centuries, humans have always tried to outrun time itself. Whether through fast horses, faster ships, or now, fiber-optic cables humming under oceans. One last image lingers before you drift towards sleep. The silhouette of a lone messenger, galloping against the burning sky, a small pouch tucked securely at his waist, racing toward destiny. He doesn't know if his message will change an empire, but he knows one thing. He'll deliver it, no matter what. You watch the dust settle as the rider vanishes over the horizon, and your journey continues, this time, stepping into the grand halls of Cyrus the Great. Picture vast, cool stone walls decorated with intricate reliefs of lions, archers, and winged creatures. Soft torchlight flickers across polished floors as you walk alongside Persian nobles, their long robes whispering against the ground. Cyrus stands at the heart of it all, a figure of both charm and steel. He's known not just for his conquests but for his surprisingly progressive rule, freeing captives, respecting local customs, and building alliances across cultures. And tonight, you catch him mid-conversation with his advisors, mulling over a crucial challenge: how to unify an empire too sprawling for word-of-mouth orders. Imagine the tension in the room. Advisors shuffle scrolls across a massive stone table, pointing to maps that stretch from the Persian Gulf to the Aegean Sea. Each red mark signals a province, a satrapy, with its own governor, soldiers, and bureaucracy. Without a reliable communication line, it's like trying to steer a ship by yelling at distant sails. Historians still argue whether Cyrus personally drafted the postal system structure or whether it emerged from earlier Mesopotamian or Assyrian inspirations, but his reign marks the moment Persia began formalizing something new, a relay system to carry royal commands swiftly across impossible distances. You step outside, where engineers are already sketching rough plans in the dirt. Here's the big idea: build a network of stations, each set a day's ride apart, and position fresh horses at every post. That way, a single message can move nonstop, even if the messenger changes. It's like passing a flaming baton in a marathon that stretches over continents. Sensory details fill the scene: men shouting, horses neighing, the clink of tools shaping metal stirrups. A quirky detail floats by. Some riders supposedly wore small bells on their belts, their jingling signaling urgency. Others swore by amulets or charms tied to their saddles, hoping for protection on the treacherous road. You run your fingers along the smooth leather of a saddle, imagining what it would feel like to leap onto a fresh horse every few hours, riding hard without pause. The system, when completed, becomes known as the Angarium. Only royal couriers called angaros could use it, and only royal messages could pass. For ordinary people, the Angarium might as well have been a blur of dust and hoofbeats, rushing by in the night. You overhear two traders grumbling. Sure, the kings can send commands across the empire in record time, but the rest of us? Still stuck with word of mouth and risky caravan gossip. As night falls, you walk back toward the palace, the soft glow of oil lamps lighting your path. Inside, Cyrus addresses his court with a satisfied smile. With this system, rebellions can be squashed before they ignite. Taxes can be collected efficiently. Border defenses can be reinforced with a single urgent message. And yet, a note of doubt lingers. Even the greatest systems depend on human reliability. Historians still debate whether Cyrus underestimated the risks of corruption, betrayal, and error in such a vast relay chain. After all, what good is a fast message if someone tampers with it along the way? You tuck that thought away for later, feeling the cool stone walls under your fingertips as you drift further into the palace. Tonight, you're not just a silent observer. You're a traveler embedded in the moment, wandering through the birth of a communication revolution. You picture the couriers already preparing, oiling their saddles, checking their route markers, whispering to their horses. Outside the palace gates, the road stretches ahead, a ribbon of possibility threading together an empire that just a generation ago seemed too large to manage. As you curl deeper into your blanket or settle against your pillow, let the image linger. Cyrus's confident stride through the halls, his dream of an empire connected by speed, by trust, by the relentless pounding F hooves on stone. It's the beginning of something that will echo far beyond his own reign, something that, in small ways, shapes the systems we still rely on today. The morning sun spills gold over the landscape as you leave the palace grounds, following the newly laid royal road. This isn't just any dirt path, it's a masterpiece of engineering stretching over 2,700 kilometers, about 1,700 miles from Sardis near the Aegean Sea to Susa, the Persian capital. As you walk, you notice how carefully the road is built, wide enough for 2 chariots to pass, its packed surface resisting the worst of the weather, lined with roadside markers so no traveler strays too far. You hear the rhythmic clang of workers driving stones into place, smell the tar and crushed gravel baking under the sun. Laborers sweat under simple linen tunics, shaping and smoothing the way forward. One quirky fact? Some sections of the road were so well designed that centuries later, Alexander the Great's armies used them with minimal repairs. Historians still argue whether Persian engineers borrowed road-building techniques from the Assyrians or pioneered many features themselves, but either way they set a new standard for imperial infrastructure. You walk alongside a group of engineers pausing for a midday meal, flatbread, dried figs, a skin of watered wine. They chatter about drainage ditches and bridge supports, even debating which types of stone hold up best under constant hoof traffic. Overhead, hawks circle lazily, their shadows flickering over the sand. A few miles ahead, you spot something remarkable, a relay station under construction. These aren't mere roadside inns, they're secure compounds built at regular intervals, offering fresh horses, food, water, and safe lodging for the royal couriers. Imagine a tired messenger arriving here. He leaps off his sweaty mount, tosses his message bag to the next rider, grabs a mouthful of water, and watches as the next horse and rider pair vanish in a cloud of dust, all within minutes. You wander through the half-finished station, noticing the strong, defensive walls. This isn't just about comfort, it's about protecting vital royal communications from thieves or enemy spies. In one corner, you see a pile of carved wooden route markers ready to be placed along the road, each bearing the distinctive symbol of the royal house. A foreman waves a stone tablet, barking instructions at a group of masons. You can almost hear his thoughts. Everything here must work like clockwork. No weak points. As evening nears, you settle by a campfire beside the road, watching the stars prick through the deepening sky. You listen to the low hum of travelers sharing stories about the royal road's creation, some true, some exaggerated. One man insists that Cyrus himself walked the entire length to test it, unlikely. Another claims the road's design was inspired by a vision in a dream, definitely fringe. You smile quietly, knowing that while legends paint broad strokes, the reality was probably just as fascinating. A blend of careful planning, relentless work, and sheer human determination. Historians still puzzle over how long it took to complete the royal road in its entirety. Was it built in stages, expanding outward from key cities? Did local satraps oversee their sections independently, or was there a single grand overseer coordinating the entire project? You trace your fingers along a section of smooth stone, wondering about the countless footsteps, hooves, and wheels that will soon pass over it. As the night deepens, you lie back on the warm earth, staring up at the constellations that ancient Persian travelers once navigated by. Somewhere out there, the road stretches onward, connecting palaces, battlefields, markets, and temples, a lifeline of empire, humming quietly under the weight of countless stories. And here you are, nestled in its history, drifting gently toward sleep. You rise with the faint light of dawn, shaking the dust from your clothes, and continue walking along the royal road. The air is crisp, the desert's chill still clinging to the ground, but soon the sun will blaze again. You follow the sound of hooves in the distance, moving toward one of the most fascinating parts of the Persian system, the relay stations where exhausted riders trade out their horses and rush on. As you approach the next post, the scent of hay and sweat fills the air. A stable hand rushes past, leading a gleaming new horse, its coat brushed to a shine, nostrils flaring with anticipation. The station master, a wiry man with a sharp eye, checks the leather saddlebags, counts sealed scrolls, and ensures the next courier is ready to ride. You watch as the change happens with astonishing speed. Within minutes, the fresh rider is off, cloak snapping behind him like a banner. Quirky fact? Some historians believe these stations were spaced roughly 25 to 30 miles apart, the ideal distance a horse could gallop before tiring. Others argue the stations were even closer, ensuring maximum speed. What they agree on is this: the Persian couriers, called angeros, were legendary for their endurance and discipline. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, famously wrote, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed." Sound familiar? Yep, centuries later, the U.S. Postal Service adopted a variation of this line as its unofficial motto. You linger at the station, watching the small rituals of the staff. A stable hand rubs a horse's legs with scented oil believed to soothe strained muscles. Another sharpens the iron shoes, carefully tapping them into place with rhythmic clinks. You imagine the tension these people live under. Any delay or mistake could disrupt the entire chain, potentially shifting the fate of a kingdom. Historians still debate whether Persia's system was truly the fastest of the ancient world or if the Romans, with their own courier networks, eventually surpassed it. But there's no question that Persia's angarium was among the first to systematize and professionalize long-distance message delivery across a vast empire. You walk past the station's main building, its thick walls designed to withstand desert winds and bandit raids. Inside, you glimpse rows of supplies, jars of water, bags of grain, tools for horse care, and, intriguingly, small cages of messenger pigeons. Yes, even with their elite courier system, the Persians didn't ignore other methods. A fringe detail? Some stories suggest high-ranking officials trained special hawks to carry urgent messages over shorter distances, a fact historians remain divided on, with little direct evidence surviving. As you continue along the road, you pass travelers resting in the shade, merchants tending to camels, and soldiers on patrol. The road is alive, a moving artery of the empire, pulsing with trade, governance, and intrigue. You realize that while only royal messengers could officially use the angarium, the road itself served countless others, weaving together a tapestry of human lives. The sun rises higher, casting long shadows across the land. You pause by a wayside well, feeling the cool splash of water on your face, watching a rider blur past in a streak of color and speed. It's humbling to imagine the sheer coordination it takes to keep the system running smoothly. The maps, the timetables, the security measures, the contingencies for storms, raids, or illness. And somehow, through centuries, the Persians managed it. As you close your eyes, resting briefly under a lone tree, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the angarium echoing through the earth, hooves striking stone, wheels creaking, voices shouting orders, scrolls crackling as they're unrolled by candlelight. You nestle into this rhythm, letting the sounds and sensations wash over you, drawing you closer to a gentle, satisfying drowsiness. The road curves ahead, and as you walk, you begin to wonder, what exactly are these couriers carrying? You catch up to one Angaros resting by a shaded outcrop, his horse grazing nearby. He gives you a tired but proud smile and unties a leather pouch from his belt, showing you its precious contents. Inside, you glimpse wax tablets, smooth wooden boards coated with blackened wax, the surface inscribed with sharp, careful strokes. Some messages are pressed onto parchment scrolls, tightly rolled and sealed with the king's insignia. You trail your fingers over one of the seals, marveling at how even thousands of years ago, people knew the importance of preventing tampering. A broken seal meant suspicion, delay, maybe even punishment. A quirky little fact? Some ancient couriers reportedly carried tiny glass bottles of ink and reed pens ready to jot down emergency notes or copy instructions if needed. Historians still argue whether these items were standard issue or reserved only for the most trusted riders. But you can imagine it, a lone courier, crouched by firelight at a wayside camp, scribbling a critical update while his horse grazes quietly nearby. You watch as the courier carefully repacks his pouch, tightening the straps. Each message is addressed with precision, who it's for, where it's going, sometimes even how quickly it needs to arrive. Royal decrees, military orders, tax assessments, diplomatic dispatches, these weren't just scraps of news. They were the veins through which the empire's lifeblood flowed. You fall in step behind the courier, observing how he scans the horizon, always alert for threats. Bandits, wild animals, or even weather could destroy a delivery. The royal road was well guarded, but no system was foolproof. Historians still debate how often messages were lost or delayed, but surviving records suggest the Persian system was impressively reliable for its time. As the day heats up, you pass a small market town where merchants eagerly await updates, news of grain prices, upcoming tax deadlines, or shifts in regional leadership. While they can't officially tap into the angarium, the whispers and leaks that travel along its edges shape local life. Imagine being a silk trader nervously waiting to hear if a new tax is coming, or a farmer hoping for news of a military patrol to protect the harvest. You wander through the town's busy square, inhaling the scent of fresh bread, roasted lamb, and dusty parchment. Quirky scene? A group of local children plays at being royal couriers, racing one another with folded leaves clutched like secret messages. They laugh and tumble, dreaming of speed and adventure, blissfully unaware of the brutal realities awaiting real messengers on the open road. As evening approaches, you sit quietly by a fountain, watching shadows lengthen across the stone walls. A group of elders nearby debates the latest news, who's been appointed to govern a neighboring province, which general is leading troops eastward, whether the king will visit their city next spring. The reliability of information matters deeply even for people who will never touch the royal seals or ride the swiftest horses. You close your eyes, imagining the soft crackle of scrolls being unrolled, the flicker of candlelight in a royal study, the hurried whispers of advisors crafting the next dispatch. Across the empire, countless lives hinge on these small, precise acts of communication. As the stars prick the sky, you feel the weight of it all wrapped in a quiet, ancient rhythm that still hums softly under the surface of the modern world. As dawn breaks once more, you find yourself among a fresh batch of messengers preparing to set out. These aren't just ordinary riders, they're part of an elite group trained specifically for the rigors of the Angarium. You watch as they check their horses, tighten their saddlebags, and exchange quiet words with the station master. There's no room for mistakes here. You stand to the side, observing the details that make these riders exceptional. Their posture is straight, their gear meticulously maintained, their eyes sharp and alert. You hear a senior courier explaining that new recruits undergo rigorous physical tests, riding at speed for hours, learning to navigate rough terrain, even practicing defensive maneuvers in case of attack. Historians still debate whether these couriers were drawn mainly from the military or if they came from specialized families dedicated to royal service, but all agree they were a cut above the average traveler. You follow a pair of riders as they set out, watching the way they lean into the gallop, coaxing every bit of speed from their horses without exhausting them too soon. Along the way, you spot markers set up at intervals, carved stones, sometimes painted or decorated, guiding couriers along the correct route. Quirky fact? Some sections reportedly used scent markers, oiled posts, or perfumed flags to help riders navigate at night or through sandstorms. The risks they face are no joke. Bandit attacks were a constant threat, especially in remote stretches. You overhear stories of messengers hiding important scrolls in their clothing or even swallowing small messages when capture seemed imminent. The desert posed its own challenges, sandstorms that could erase the road itself, sudden flash floods, and the unrelenting sun. You shield your eyes, imagining what it must feel like to race across this land, every nerve humming with urgency, every sense on high alert. Historians still argue whether the system had formalized emergency protocols. Did couriers carry coded messages, perhaps, or emergency signals to summon help? The records are tantalizingly incomplete, leaving you to wonder just how much these riders had to improvise when things went wrong. As you pause by a rocky outcrop, you spot another important figure in this network, the station messenger, a lower-ranking courier responsible for carrying updates and instructions just between relay stations. While they weren't part of the elite Angarium, their work kept the whole system running smoothly. You watch one such figure dart between buildings, handing off supply lists and schedule updates, his face flushed with urgency despite covering only a few miles. The sun rises higher, the heat shimmering off the ground. You find a bit of shade, watching riders blur past in flashes of color, dust, and determination. You marvel at the sheer coordination it takes to keep this network operating. Stable hands, route planners, scribes, supply officers, riders, guards. It's like a living machine, each part small but essential. As the day fades and the stars return, you stretch out on a cool stone ledge, feeling the pulse of the empire all around you. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse snorts softly, somewhere else, a torch flickers to life. You close your eyes, imagining the relentless pace of the Angarium carrying news, commands, and stories across vast, ancient distances. And here you are, gently drifting, feeling the echoes of that motion, the steady drumbeat of hooves threading softly through your dreams. The moon hangs pale and full over the hills as you stir, following a courier riding through the night. You shiver slightly at the cool air and glance upward, noticing faint flickers of light in the distance. No, it's not a mirage, you're watching an ancient signaling system in action. Along certain stretches of the Royal Road where the terrain allowed, torch signals were used to pass urgent messages after sunset. Imagine tall watchtowers spaced across ridges, each staffed by a pair of signalers. When a message arrived, they'd light torches or fire pots in specific patterns, relaying information visually across miles. Historians still argue how detailed these nighttime signals could get. Were they limited to simple yes/no updates, or did they convey full sentences? Whatever the truth, you can picture the excitement and stress, standing on a wind-battered hilltop, eyes straining through the dark, waiting for the next distant flare. You walk quietly alongside a pair of night signalers as they tend their fire, their hands blackened with soot, their faces weathered from long shifts in the cold. Quirky detail? Some records suggest they brewed strong herbal teas or chewed spiced roots to stay awake during their long, chilly vigils. You chuckle softly to yourself, ancient energy drinks, minus the neon cans. Below the signal towers, the couriers press on, their horses' hooves muffled by the night's stillness. You listen to the soft jingle of reins, the occasional snort or stamp, the whisper of cloaks against the wind. Riding at night wasn't easy. Even under the moon, the road could vanish into shadows, and unexpected obstacles, fallen rocks, hidden gullies, sudden storms, posed constant threats. Yet the system worked, pulling information across an empire while most of its subjects slept. As you follow the path downward, you reach a small village just off the main road. Lamps flicker in a few windows, but for the most part, the town is still. You pause at a low wall, resting your arms on the cool stone, watching as a courier thunders past without even glancing sideways. His entire world is the message, the mission. Villagers might never learn what passes their doorstep, yet those messages shape the taxes they pay, the soldiers they house, the laws they live under. Historians still puzzle over how widespread the signaling system truly was. Did it cover only military routes, or did it extend to major cities, too? The evidence is patchy, but the mere possibility hints at a sophisticated web of coordination stretching across deserts, mountains, and seas. You wander a little farther, listening to the night deepen, the stars wheel overhead. A dog barks in the distance, a rooster gives an early, confused crow. Somewhere far away, a messenger's torch flickers, its light briefly dancing across the hills. You wrap yourself in this quiet, this ancient rhythm of night riders and signal fires, drifting gently towards sleep, your own breath syncing with the pulse of a world long past but not quite forgotten. The morning sun warms your face as you leave the sleepy village behind, your path leading deeper into the heart of Persian authority. Today, you're walking alongside not just riders and merchants but the machinery of empire itself, laws, decrees, and the iron framework that holds it all together. As you approach the next city, you notice a crowd gathered in the main square. A royal messenger has arrived, dismounting before the governor's hall. He hands over a scroll sealed with the king's emblem, and immediately a hush falls. You edge closer, curious, watching as the governor's scribe unrolls the scroll and reads aloud new tax rules, military orders, or perhaps an update on a neighboring province. One quirky detail? Some royal decrees were written in multiple languages to account for the empire's vast diversity: Old Persian, Elamite, Akkadian, Aramaic. Historians still debate how strictly local officials followed the letter of these commands or whether they sometimes interpreted the king's will to suit local politics. But here, in this moment, you see the weight these messages carry. The crowd listens closely, knowing that one writer's delivery can reshape daily life. You wander through the city's bustling streets, where shopkeepers discuss the latest announcements, soldiers prepare for deployments, and tax collectors sharpen their quills. While the Angarium was designed for royal use, its ripple effects touch every corner of society. A swift message can redirect an army, halt a rebellion, or change the entire economic flow of a region. You pause at a stall selling sweet pastries, inhaling the scent of honey and nuts, thinking how even these treats are shaped by the distant, galloping pulse of the empire. Historians still wonder how much common people knew about the system's inner workings. Did they see it as a marvel of technology or simply part of the royal mystique? As you listen to the townspeople whispering about new laws and distant battles, you sense a mix of awe and frustration. The Angarium is powerful, yes, but it also reminds them how far away power truly is. Outside the city, you spot a smaller relay station, a modest post compared to the grand complexes near major capitals. Here, the staff balances routine deliveries with sensitive assignments, urgent orders, diplomatic messages, perhaps even secret missives hidden in double-sealed scrolls. Quirky fact? Some stations reportedly kept detailed logs of every message passing through, a sort of ancient tracking system. Imagine the scribe's cramped handwriting filling page after page, noting times, dates, and messenger names. You rest on a low stone bench, watching the relay station's rhythm, horses coming in, riders switching out, bags checked and resealed. It's a quiet dance, efficient but never rushed. You feel the hum of a system built on discipline, precision, and trust, a far cry from the casual pace of local gossip or merchant caravans. As evening settles, you walk along the road once more, the sky painted in deepening shades of gold and indigo. You pass a small shrine where travelers leave offerings for safe journeys: coins, carved stones, small figures shaped from clay. You pause, placing your hand on the warm stone, offering a silent wish for the riders racing through the night. And as you continue on, the sounds of the city fading behind you, you sense the heartbeat of the Angarium echoing in your own quiet footsteps, drawing you deeper into the empire's intricate, restless web. You wake to the gentle clatter of hooves and the low murmur of conversation. Today, you're not walking alongside royal messengers or soldiers, you're drifting among the ordinary people who benefit from this vast system, even if they'll never touch its official channels. As you stroll through a bustling marketplace, you watch merchants unload crates of fine Persian textiles, rare spices, and exotic goods. You overhear their discussions, they're anxiously awaiting news about taxes, border disputes, and trade agreements. Even though the Angarium was reserved for the king's commands, its ripple effects shape daily business, creating a constant undercurrent of anticipation. You pause by a group of women gathered at a well, exchanging family news. One mentions a cousin serving in a distant military post, another speaks of a brother working as a minor scribe in the palace. Letters passed along unofficially, piggybacking on the royal network, sometimes slip through thanks to a kindly station master or a well-bribed courier. Historians still argue how often these personal messages were tolerated, but human nature has always found ways to weave the personal into the official. Quirky fact? Some merchants reportedly developed their own informal courier networks, mirroring the Angarium on a smaller scale. Imagine teams of traders using coded symbols or color-marked cloth to communicate along busy trade routes, dodging official scrutiny while staying one step ahead of competitors. You smile at the cleverness of it, imagining a silken pouch passing quietly from hand to hand, a secret no royal writer ever touches. As you continue wandering, you spot a small caravan preparing to depart. Camels grunt softly, ropes creak, and children dart among the packs. You chat with a merchant who explains how much they rely on advance warnings, whether a road is flooded, a bridge collapsed, or a local official tightened tariffs overnight. The faster the royal couriers move, the better these merchants can adapt. Historians still puzzle over just how tightly controlled information was in the Persian Empire. Did ordinary citizens have access to updates, or were they left guessing based on rumors and scraps of overheard conversations? You listen to the market chatter, noticing how every whispered rumor, every scrap of news, carries the weight of both hope and anxiety. You drift farther, pausing by a roadside tavern where travelers swap stories over mugs of watered wine. A grizzled old soldier brags about once riding with a royal courier, narrowly outrunning a bandit attack. Another swears he saw a king's messenger deliver a death sentence in a sealed scroll. You chuckle softly, whether true or not, these tales keep the mystique of the Angarium alive, a thread of adventure woven into the ordinary. As the sun sets and the marketplace grows quiet, you find a spot beneath a tree, resting against the warm earth. The sky fades from peach to violet, stars beginning to blink awake. Somewhere out there, on distant roads, messengers still ride, scrolls tucked close to their chests, bearing the lifeblood of an empire that even now pulses softly through the night. You close your eyes, letting the echoes of market noise, laughter, and hooves settle around you, sinking gently into the ancient rhythm of a world shaped not just by power and conquest but by the quiet, ceaseless flow of information. The next morning, you walk along a stretch of the royal road where the landscape opens wide, the horizon stretching far into shimmering heat. Here, you pause to compare Persia's innovations with other great civilizations: China, Rome, Egypt. You imagine standing at a crossroads of history, peering into different worlds, each crafting its own solutions for the same challenge: how to move messages faster than the wind. In China, you recall, early postal systems developed along imperial routes with mounted couriers carrying bamboo slips. The Romans, too, built their own courier networks, famous for straight, durable roads and military dispatches. But the Persian Angarium stands out for its scale, speed, and state control. Historians still debate whether Persia's network directly influenced these later systems or if similar innovations emerged independently. You picture teams of scholars huddled over ancient texts, arguing softly over timelines and borrowings. You stroll past a stone milestone marked with ancient script, thinking about the sheer ambition of these empires. Quirky fact? Some Persian roads reportedly featured small shelters built specifically for tired travelers, not just royal couriers, allowing merchants and pilgrims to rest under the same stars as the empire's messengers. You imagine sharing a fireside meal, swapping stories, feeling a brief kinship across social divides. As you walk, you overhear travelers debating which empire ran the fastest couriers. Was it the Romans with their cursus publicus? The Chinese with their relay runners? Or the Persians with their tireless riders covering up to 1,500 miles in a matter of days? You smile quietly. Maybe the real marvel isn't which empire was fastest, but how each one found its own way to weave together far-flung lands and peoples. Historians still puzzle over how much information these systems actually moved. Were they mostly military and administrative, or did they also carry news, scientific knowledge, cultural stories? You imagine scrolls filled not just with orders and taxes, but with poems, maps, herbal recipes, a quiet tide of human curiosity flowing alongside power. The sun rises higher, casting sharp shadows across the road. You pause by a small roadside shrine where travelers leave offerings for safe passage, bits of pottery, coins, beads. You touch the cool stone, feeling a momentary connection across centuries as if you too are part of this ancient web of roads, riders, and messages. As evening falls, you find yourself comparing not just empires but centuries, realizing that long before email or satellite communication, humans were already obsessed with speed, precision, and reach. You picture a line of couriers stretching into the horizon, their silhouettes flickering in torchlight, their mission as old as civilization itself, to connect, to inform, to keep the world moving. You settle in for the night, the stars wheeling overhead, letting these images drift through your mind. Somewhere, a rider gallops onward, the road humming softly beneath his horse's hooves, and you, safe and still, drift gently into dreams shaped by the tireless race of history. You stir under the dawn's light, feeling the weight of the empire growing as you travel farther along the royal road. The further Persia expanded, the more pressure fell upon its intricate postal system. You glance around at the caravans, soldiers, traders, and messengers flowing in both directions, each one adding another thread to an ever-thickening web. Imagine this: under Cyrus the Great, the system functioned like a sleek, well-oiled machine. But by the time of Darius and Xerxes, the empire's reach stretched to its absolute limits. You walk alongside a scribe shuffling a bundle of messages, frowning at the growing pile. More provinces meant more orders, more taxes, more military updates. And the royal road had to absorb it all. Historians still argue whether the system was truly scalable. Could it handle the weight of such a massive empire indefinitely, or were cracks already forming under the surface? You overhear murmurs among the station staff about late arrivals, overworked horses, and missing scrolls. The Angarium, once a marvel, faces the timeless problem of human systems everywhere. Scale too big and something's bound to strain. Quirky fact? Some later Persian kings reportedly installed priority seals on their scrolls, commanding faster than usual delivery for urgent matters. You picture a sweating courier, galloping at breakneck speed, dodging obstacles, pushing horse and body to the limit, all because of a tiny, embossed mark. You wince a little. Not all messengers survived these extreme pushes, and some scholars believe the empire's constant demands eventually wore down even its strongest riders. You pass through a bustling checkpoint where guards and officials sort incoming and outgoing dispatches. Here, you sense the empire's pulse in full swing: soldiers waiting for fresh orders, merchants anxious about new tariffs, governors juggling political shifts. Each message feels like a tiny spark, keeping the massive machinery of Persia humming forward. As you sit under a tree watching the shadows lengthen, you reflect on how delicate it all is. Without the Angarium, Persia's provinces might spin apart, governors might rebel, armies might lose cohesion. This postal system isn't just about letters, it's about unity, control, and survival. Historians still debate how long the system truly held its peak performance. Did it start faltering under Xerxes, under Artaxerxes, or only much later? You gaze at the distant hills, imagining the ghostly shapes of couriers racing over the ridges, each one chasing the fading dream of empire, their hoofbeats echoing into the vast, waiting dark. As night falls, you wrap yourself in your cloak, the cool air brushing your cheeks, the stars winking overhead. Somewhere out there, a message races through the shadows, carrying the hopes and commands of kings. You settle deeper into the earth's gentle embrace, letting the hum of history cradle you toward sleep. You rise at dawn, stretching stiff muscles as you resume your walk, but today something feels off. There's a hush on the road, a subtle tension you can't quite name. Whispers drift past, talk of spies, intercepted messages, sabotage. You pick up your pace, curious, your mind wandering into the murky world of espionage. Imagine being a courier carrying sensitive military plans only to discover that enemy agents have slipped fake orders into the relay chain. You pause at a relay station, watching as the staff carefully inspects seals, double-checks delivery logs, and scrutinizes scrolls under flickering lamplight. Historians still debate how widespread espionage was along the Persian postal routes, but fragments of records suggest that foreign spies, particularly from Greek city-states, occasionally infiltrated the system, sowing confusion and mistrust. Quirky detail? Some ancient rumors claim that high-ranking Persian officials developed coded messages written in invisible ink made from plant sap or milk, only revealed by gentle heating. You picture a nervous scribe huddled over a candle, watching faint words emerge like magic across parchment. You follow a pair of guards escorting a particularly sensitive dispatch. Their eyes dart constantly, hands resting on sword hilts, every muscle tense. You sense the paranoia, the delicate balance between trust and suspicion. How many messages went astray? How many betrayals slipped unseen through the cracks? As you walk beside them, the landscape shifts subtly, fewer friendly faces, more guarded glances. You overhear riders discussing new protocols, tighter seals, secret passwords, secure escort routes. Yet no system is perfect. Historians still argue whether the Angarium ever fully adapted to the threat of espionage or whether it limped along, always a step behind the next clever plot. You reach a small outpost where a captured courier sits under guard, his face pale, scrolls confiscated. Was he a traitor, a dupe, or simply unlucky? You can't tell, and neither can the wary soldiers surrounding him. You walk past quietly, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing against the Empire's sleek facade. As evening settles, you sit by a flickering campfire, the stars high overhead. You listen to the faint sounds of riders in the distance, the rustle of wind through dried grass, the crackle of flames. You realize that beneath the grand, orderly surface of the Angarium lies a restless undercurrent of doubt, of risk, of the fragile threads that hold a mighty empire together. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of the night wrap around you, the pulse of hoofbeats and whispered secrets fading softly into the dark. As dawn breaks, you sense a change in the air, a slowing, a weight pressing down on the great Angarium system. You walk quietly along the royal road, feeling its stones underfoot, but now the smooth efficiency you once admired seems to fray at the edges. Under later kings, the Persian Empire struggled with internal dissent, external pressures, and weakening leadership. You pass by a relay station where the mood feels tense. Horses stand unattended, messages pile up on tables, and the station master rubs his temples, muttering under his breath. You overhear snippets of frustration. The governor's men never arrived, that courier's 3 days late, supplies haven't come in weeks. Quirky fact? Some stories claim that, toward the empire's decline, messengers occasionally abandoned their posts, slipping away into banditry or local politics. Historians still argue whether these accounts are exaggerated or reflect a deeper rot inside the once mighty system. But you can sense the cracks here, the way the gears grind more slowly, the once flawless machine sputtering under the Empire's immense weight. You continue down the road, noticing small but telling signs, relay stations overgrown with weeds, once busy waypoints now silent, guards standing listlessly at posts. You pass a courier riding a thin, weary horse, his face pale and anxious. He stops to beg a sip of water, not the proud, disciplined Angaros you saw earlier, but a tired man just trying to get through another day. You rest at a crumbling milestone, tracing your fingers over the weathered carvings. Once, these stones marked the Empire's vast reach, the promise of speed and order. Now they feel like fading relics, their meaning slipping away as the Empire falters. Historians still debate when exactly the decline began. Was it after the costly wars with Greece? The rising tensions among satrapies? The overextension into distant provinces? The truth, perhaps, is a slow, creeping unraveling. As dusk settles, you walk through a village where the townsfolk speak in hushed tones about missed messages, confused orders, governors acting without approval. You pause at a tavern, listening to an old man grumble. The king's riders used to thunder past here every day. Now, just dust and silence. You sip cool water, feeling the ache of a system stretched too thin, its once glorious efficiency fading into memory. You step back onto the road as stars begin to prick the sky, the night air cool and whispering. Somewhere out there, a few loyal riders still carry their messages, still chase the promise of empire. But you can feel the slow crumble beneath your feet, the quiet sigh of a system nearing its end. You wrap yourself in this bittersweet hush, the weight of history soft against your skin. As you drift gently into sleep, the sun rises over a dusty plain as you approach a site buzzing with quiet excitement. Modern-day archaeologists kneel in the dirt, brushes and trowels in hand, carefully uncovering the long-buried remnants of the ancient postal world. You wander between excavation pits, peeking over shoulders, marveling at the delicate fragments emerging from the ground. Here, a chipped clay tablet, its cuneiform barely legible. There, a rusted metal clasp, once used to seal a messenger's pouch. You listen as a researcher explains how even tiny finds, bits of pottery, worn horse fittings, scraps of parchment, help piece together the story of the Angarium. Historians still debate how much of the system's infrastructure survives today. Did most relay stations vanish under the sands? Or do their foundations still hide under villages, fields, or modern roads? Quirky fact: one excavation recently uncovered a stash of old route markers, their carved symbols still faintly visible after centuries underground. You imagine a line of those markers stretching into the horizon, quietly guiding riders across the empire's vastness, even as time sought to erase their path. You walk through the dig site, feeling the strange contrast between past and present. Over here, a group of students maps the outline of a collapsed station wall. Over there, a professor debates the purpose of a strange stone basin. Was it for watering horses or perhaps part of a signaling system? You smile softly at the thought. Even after millennia, the Persian postal system continues to spark curiosity and debate. As you wander among the artifacts, you picture the lives they once touched. The couriers racing along the road, the governors waiting anxiously for news, the merchants adjusting prices based on royal decrees. You run your fingers lightly over a weathered piece of stone, feeling the faint grooves where human hands once worked. Historians still wonder how much we've lost. Not just physical structures, but stories, names, the small human moments that shaped the system's heartbeat. How many scrolls crumbled to dust? How many voices faded unrecorded? How many hoofbeats now echo only in imagination? As the sun sets over the excavation, you sit on a low wall, watching the team pack up their tools. The dig winds down for the day, but you sense that the past is never truly silent. Somewhere under the earth, the remnants of the Angarium wait, holding onto their secrets a little longer. You close your eyes, letting the cool evening air brush your skin, the quiet murmurs of the archaeologists blending into the soft hush of the past. You breathe in the scent of old stone, dry grass, and faint memory, feeling yourself sink gently into a dreamscape where the ancient and the modern whisper side by side. As dawn glimmers across the plain, you find yourself reflecting on the legacy of the Angarium, not just its roads and stations, but the invisible threads it wove through world history. You walk slowly, feeling the weight of centuries pressing softly against your shoulders, marveling at how this ancient system shaped the future. Everywhere you look, echoes ripple outward. Medieval Europe's courier systems, the Mongol Yam network, even modern postal services all draw in some small way from the Persian genius for organized, fast, reliable communication. Historians still debate how much direct influence Persia had on later empires, but the parallels are striking. Fresh horses at regular intervals, protected routes, official messengers sworn to duty. You pass a school where students read about the royal road, their fingers tracing bright illustrations in their textbooks. You overhear a teacher explaining how even today's global supply chains owe something to these early experiments in speed and coordination. Quirky fact: some postal museums around the world feature Angarium-inspired exhibits, complete with models of relay stations and life-size statues of couriers. You smile, imagining tourists posing next to these ancient figures, snapping photos without realizing they stand in the shadow of a communication revolution. As you walk onward, you picture the modern highways, fiber optic cables, satellites, and wireless signals humming across the planet. And yet, at their heart, they echo a simple, timeless desire: to connect, to share, to span distances faster than nature ever intended. You glance up at a passenger jet streaking across the sky, a tiny silver shape racing between continents, and you think of a lone horseman galloping across the plains of Persia, scroll clutched tight, chasing the future. Historians still puzzle over why the Angarium lingers so vividly in the imagination. Is it the romance of the rider, the grandeur of empire, or the sheer audacity of the system itself? You touch the edge of a weathered milestone, letting your fingers rest on the cold stone, and you feel a quiet answer stir. Perhaps it's simply the beauty of humans refusing to stand still. As the sun sinks lower, painting the horizon in soft gold, you find a quiet place to rest. You let the long journey settle in your bones, the hum of history wrapping gently around you, a comforting weight that carries you, softly, towards sleep. Wind down. And now, as we near the end of our journey, let's slow everything down. You feel the cool night air brushing your skin, the soft rustle of the wind through ancient grasses, the faint echo of hooves fading into memory. You picture the royal road stretching far into the darkness, lit only by the stars overhead, a silent ribbon tying past and present together. Your breathing slows, deepens, as you sink into the soft comfort of your bed. There's no rush here, no urgent messages, no distant commands. Just you, resting gently, cradled by the long, slow heartbeat of history. Let your thoughts drift like the dust along old stone paths. Let your mind wander, softly, through the ages, carried gently by the quiet promise that, no matter how far we reach, we're always connected. Sleep well, dream deeply, and know that tonight, you've walked alongside the riders of empire, past the torches, past the scrolls, past the centuries, into the quiet heart of the world.